This story reminds us that dignity isn't earned by appearance, titles, or assumptions. It belongs to everyone. Prejudice doesn't just hurt those targeted. It weakens the entire system. When we see people for who they truly are, not who we expect them to be, we create space for justice, excellence, and positive change. Please help us subscribe to the channel as a support to the work we are doing. Thank you. The elevator door slid open with a low chime, and the lobby's polished floor mirrored a man who stepped out. Simple clothes, worn sneakers, a laptop bag slung casually across his shoulder. Isaiah Cole walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had earned every scar life gave him. Though today, he seemed intentionally understated. He had his reasons. Reasons the people in this building were about to learn in the most unforgettable way. The receptionist, a tall, sharp-looking woman with red nail polish and a platinum bob, barely glanced up before clicking her tongue. "You lost?" she asked, not bothering to mask the irritation in her voice. Isaiah offered a polite smile. "No, ma'am. I'm here for the senior staff meeting." Her brows shot upward. "Senior staff?" She gave him a slow, unmistakably judgmental scan, stopping at the hem of his faded hoodie. "They don't usually let outside contractors into that meeting." "I'm not a contractor," Isaiah answered calmly. She blinked, misreading his tone as defiance rather than a simple statement of fact. "Sir, the maintenance department uses the back entrance. You can't just walk through the main lobby." Isaiah felt a familiar sting, not of surprise, but of recognition. He had lived this moment before, in different buildings with different faces, yet the same dismissive tone. He inhaled slowly, letting the air burn through his chest like fuel instead of fire. "I'm not maintenance," he said gently, "but thank you." The receptionist sighed heavily, pressing a button. "Security? I think we have someone wandering who shouldn't be here." Before Isaiah could respond, two guards approached, one older, one younger. The younger one, full of misplaced bravado, stepped too close. "What's your business here?" he demanded. Isaiah kept his gaze steady. "I told her. I'm here for the senior staff meeting on the 14th floor." "For what reason?" the older guard asked, more controlled, though still suspicious. "Because I was invited," Isaiah replied. The receptionist scoffed. "Invited? For what?" "Plumbing updates." The younger guard stifled a laugh. Isaiah didn't flinch. "No," he said softly. "For partnership discussions." The lobby went still. Then the receptionist burst into a brittle laugh. "Partnership? In what world?" The cruelty stung the air, light, casual, and yet heavy enough to bruise. For a moment, Isaiah said nothing. He could have corrected her then, revealed everything, silenced them instantly. But the truth was, he didn't want to. Not yet. Not until the right moment. The moment when truth would echo loudest. Instead, he simply nodded. "I'll take the stairs," he said quietly. By the time Isaiah reached the 14th floor, a conference room full of executives had gathered, gray suits, expensive watches, practiced smiles. They barely glanced at him as he entered. Not one paused to consider he belonged among them. A tall man with silver hair, Mr. Langford, head of mergers, squinted when he saw Isaiah approaching a chair near the front. "Ah, no," Langford said, stepping forward with a condescending smile. "The service team sits in the back. If you could stay out of sight during the presentation, that would be best." A few executives chuckled under their breaths. Isaiah glanced toward the glass wall, the city skyline stretching behind it like a witness to the indignity unfolding. His fingers curled around the strap of his laptop bag, grounding himself. He spoke evenly. "I'm not with the service team." Langford waved off the comment. Right. You're one of the junior analysts from the diversity program, aren't you? They do send in a few every year." "I'm not an analyst," Isaiah answered, "and I am not part of any diversity initiative." Langford frowned. "Then who exactly are you?" "Because I have no record of you on the meeting list." Just then, another executive, a woman with steel blue eyes, leaned in and whispered to Langford, loud enough for Isaiah to hear. "It's probably a mistake. He doesn't look like he belongs." Isaiah felt the words like a punch, not because they were new, but because they were tired. predictable, a repeated script from a world still unwilling to see beyond its own narrow lens. Before it could respond, the door swung open again. This time, the CEO himself strode in, talking briskly into his phone. Yes, I know, he was saying. He should be here by now. The new partner. Brilliant mind. Visionary. Whole team is waiting for him. The room shifted with anticipation. Everyone straightened their posture, clearing throats, fixing ties, adjusting chairs, eager to impress the mystery partner, whose name hadn't yet been revealed to anyone except the board. The CEO ended the call, stepped forward, and his eyes landed on Isaiah. Before anyone could blink, the CEO's face broke into a wide, respectful smile. There he is, he declared. Silence slammed down like a thunderbolt. The CEO extended his hand. Isaiah Cole, welcome. We've been waiting. Every head in the room turned sharply. Every smirk vanished. Every assumption shattered. Langford's face drained of color. The receptionist's voice from downstairs might as well have echoed through the walls. He doesn't look like he belongs. Now everyone could see exactly how wrong they had been. Isaiah met the CEO's handshake with a calm, steady grip. Thank you, he said. Shall we begin? He walked past the stunned executives, past Langford's stiff posture, past the rows of expensive suits that had dismissed him only minutes ago. He placed his laptop on the table at the head of the room, the seat reserved for leadership. The CEO nodded at the others. This is our new partner. I expect every one of you to treat him with the respect he deserves. Not a whisper rose. Not a breath dared disturb the silence. Isaiah looked around the room, his voice soft but powerful. I believe before we start the presentation, we should address something important. Dozens of eyes lifted to him, uncertain, exposed. Isaiah continued, sometimes the greatest obstacle in a room isn't ignorance of business, but ignorance of people. And today, that nearly cost you an opportunity. The room tightened, shame settling like fog. Isaiah tapped the laptop key, and the presentation screen brightened. Now, he said, let's talk about the future. But just as he prepared to start, the CEO's phone buzzed again, this time with an urgent alert that made his expression shift dramatically. He stared at the screen, brows tightening. Isaiah, he murmured, we have a situation. The room braced. What kind of situation? Isaiah asked. The CEO looked up slowly, the gravity unmistakable. There's been a breach connected to you. An entire board wants answers. Isaiah froze. Everyone else looked on, confused and curious. Some still guilty, others desperate for redemption, and a few already returned to old habits of doubt. Isaiah inhaled sharply. The room felt different now. The earlier arrogance had melted into uneasy anticipation. Every executive, every polished face around the table shifted, waiting for Isaiah's reaction. The CEO's phone glowed ominously in his hand, the alert casting tension across the room like a dark shadow. Isaiah straightened slowly, his posture steady. A breach, he repeated. Connected to me? The CEO's expression deepened, not accusatory, but undeniably concerned. Yes. A breach in our confidential systems. The board wants immediate answers. Eyes darted around the room. Some people looked alarmed. Others, especially those who had doubted Isaiah downstairs, seemed almost eager for a downfall they could rationalize. Their minds whispered, see? Something must be off about him. Langford cleared his throat, pushing his luck. Well, he said lightly, this certainly complicates the morning. Should we postpone the partnership announcement until we get clarity? His tone dripped with false politeness, masking a hunger that Isaiah recognized too well. The hunger for justification, for validation of bias, for any reason to reaffirm old beliefs. Isaiah didn't take the bait. Instead, he tapped a key on his laptop, pulling up a new screen, one he hadn't planned to show until much later. He turned to the CEO. May I? The CEO nodded, giving the floor. Isaiah clicked again, and a detailed series of graphs and security logs illuminated the screen. Lines of code, timestamps, error flags, attempted access logs. It was all there. Let me explain what's actually happening, Isaiah said, voice steady. He pointed at the first spike on the graph. 3 attempts were made to access the server starting at 5:42 a.m. A hush fell over the room. At 5:43, he continued, someone tried to log in using my temporary credentials. But those credentials expired yesterday afternoon, intentionally. Langford blinked. Intentionally? Yes, Isaiah said, because I wanted to test your internal system resilience before committing to a partnership. If we were going to work together, I needed to know how secure the foundation actually was. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. And what I found, he continued, is that someone inside this company is the real breach. Gasps rippled. The air thickened. Executives shifted uncomfortably. Isaiah zoomed in on a cluster of logs. These login attempts weren't external. They weren't random. They came from this floor, specifically from an office tied to an existing senior staff member. Langford's jaw tightened. The CEO stepped closer to the screen, eyes narrowing. Can you trace it? Isaiah nodded. I already did. He tapped again. A name appeared on the screen, one that made the room explode with whispers. Thomas Langford, head of mergers. Langford shot up from his seat, face flushing red. This is ridiculous. How dare you imply? Isaiah raised a hand. Calm. Controlled. Don't waste your breath. The system logs are precise. Every access point is time-stamped. Every failed login attempt leads back to your terminal. Langford pointed an aggressive finger. You're accusing me without knowing anything about. Actually, Isaiah interjected, I know more than you think. The CEO turned to Langford, no longer neutral. Thomas, he said slowly, this is serious. If this is true. Langford's voice cracked. Why would I breach my own company? Isaiah answered without hesitation. To sabotage me. Dead silence. Isaiah continued. You tried to access my credentials because you wanted something to use against me before the board meeting. Something you could twist to say I wasn't fit, wasn't trustworthy, didn't belong. Langford's facade crumbled. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop, Isaiah said firmly. You and I both know why you did it. Because you judged me the moment I walked in. From the clothes, the skin, the assumptions. You weren't threatened by my credentials. You were threatened by everything you thought I couldn't be. Langford swallowed hard, his arrogance finally breaking apart. The CEO looked at Isaiah. Can you show the board? Isaiah nodded. Of course. Everything is documented. A heavy silence followed. Then Isaiah added, but before I present it, I want to say something. Every eye fixed on him. He took a breath, then spoke with quiet strength. This morning, several people in this building underestimated me. They dismissed me without a thought. Not because of anything I said or did, but because of what they assumed. That bias, that prejudice, it doesn't just hurt feelings. It damages teams, companies, futures. It creates cracks where sabotage can slip through. He turned toward Langford, not with anger, but with clarity. When people believe certain individuals don't belong, they justify harming them. Silently, subtly, systematically. Langford stared at the table, shaken. Isaiah continued, voice resonant and sharp. And this is what happens when you judge a person by appearance instead of integrity. The CEO exhaled slowly. Isaiah, what do you want to do next? Isaiah closed his laptop gently. The board needs to know everything, he said. Let the truth do what it always does. Expose what was hidden. He stood. The entire room rose with him. Some out of respect, some out of fear, some out of a dawning realization that they had witnessed a shift in power no one could deny. But as Isaiah reached the door, a vibration buzzed through the CEO's phone, a second alert. He checked it, and his face drained. It's not over, he whispered. Isaiah paused. What now? The CEO looked up slowly, eyes wide. The breach! It just escalated. Someone is trying to delete all the evidence. Isaiah turned back to the room. Everyone looked frozen, except for Langford, who suddenly wasn't in his seat anymore. The chair sat empty. The door at the far end was slightly ajar. A cold current of realization swept through the room. Isaiah's voice dropped to a low, controlled warning. This just became bigger than internal sabotage. The CEO stepped forward. What do you mean? Isaiah fixed his gaze on the open door. Langford isn't working alone. Security rushed through the hallway, alarms flashing silently on the monitors, and Isaiah followed the CEO toward the exit. But when they stepped into the corridor, Langford was already surrounded. Caught between guards and the blinking red lights of the lockdown system Isaiah had activated remotely, there was no escape. Langford's bravado finally collapsed. His shoulders sagged, the weight of guilt pulling him down. For the first time, he looked not arrogant, not superior, just small. One of the guards stepped forward, placing a firm hand on his arm. Isaiah approached, steady and composed. Langford looked up, his voice trembling. Why go this far? Isaiah studied him for a long moment. Because prejudice grows in the shadows, he said quietly, but accountability grows in the light. Langford swallowed, unable to respond. As the guards escorted him away, the CEO turned to Isaiah with gratitude and a touch of humility. You saved us, he said, not just from a breach, but from ourselves. Isaiah nodded slowly. The greatest danger to any system, whether a company or a community, is a belief that certain people don't matter. The CEO absorbed the words, then motioned toward the conference room. Let's finish this. Properly. Back inside, the executive stood when Isaiah entered. The same people who had dismissed him earlier. Their faces held a mixture of respect and self-reflection. The room felt transformed, not by wealth or power, but by what it had been forced to confront. Isaiah took his place at the head of the table. Before we move forward, he said, let me leave you with something important. Every head lifted. Judgment can blind. Bias can sabotage. And prejudice can cause you to lose the very person who came to build, to uplift, to bring change. What we were isn't who we are. What you assume is what we become. He paused, letting the truth breathe. Respect is not optional. Equity is not negotiable. And dignity is not a privilege, it's a right. The room remained silent, absorbing every word. Isaiah concluded, when you treat people right, you build stronger teams, stronger communities, stronger futures. And when you judge others by their skin, their clothes, or their status, you might just push away the very greatness you need. The CEO nodded firmly. Well said. Isaiah clicked his laptop shut. Now, he said with a small smile, let's build something worthy. And for the first time that day, the room echoed with genuine applause. Never underestimate someone. Never assume you know their worth. Respect is powerful and it's free. If the story moved you, inspired you, or opened your eyes, don't forget to, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments. What part hit you the hardest? Subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift justice, dignity, and the voices that deserve to be heard. Your engagement helps this message reach more people. Let's continue growing a community where every story teaches empathy, reflection, and respect.